It doesn't matter who your wife is,
Yes.
right? You can look at your wife and say, but you're not this.
Right.
And that's focusing on lack. And lack is a form of negativity. This is the beginning of the deception. Anytime you're in the lack category, we're going to talk about different negativities with wealth and with health. But here in relationships, we're talking about the negativity of lack. And this is what will deceive your desires. You have a desire for a great relationship.
Yeah.
You have a desire for a great wife, but you started focusing on what your wife doesn't have.
Exactly.
You started focusing on lack. And now your desire for a great wife is deceived, and it becomes a wrong desire. That wrong desire is, well, how about this woman over here? She has the thing that my wife doesn't have.
Yeah.
Does that mean she's better?
Oh, yeah, clearly, Garrett. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see things that if I would have known this years ago, I would have made a different decision. Man, it's like, this is really what I want. And what I want is to be happy. So, right, like this is going to be better. And
it's your chief focus.
Yep.
All you see is what you don't have.
Exactly. And I always tell men, what you appreciate goes up in value, which is quite literal in financial terms as well. If you start appreciating your wife, guess what? She becomes more valuable to you.
Now
Gratitude's big.
Let's back up for a second.
All right.
Let me go to a guy with a wonderful marriage.
Okay.
Right. Great man and a great woman. And he's not thinking about any of the things that his wife isn't. He's only focused like, man, my wife is amazing. And
right.
He tells me, just saying, like I'm at coffee with a guy and he tells me the story of how great his wife is. And I say to him, let's call him Tom. I go, Tom, do you want to throw your wife away?
Yeah.
And he would be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I just told you like how great my wife is. Like I'm going to do everything I can to keep her.
For sure.
Right. And so that's the fruit of the sin though, that we're talking about. The fruit of the sin in his life, if Tom starts thinking about, well, like here's all the things that my wife isn't, then he starts desiring another woman. And if you allow that to conceive, you know what he'll do is he'll throw his wife away.
Yep.
And so that's what I'm talking about. And if I'm at coffee with Tom and he just told me how great his wife is and I show him the fruit of sin, he's like, no, that's disgusting. I want none of that. But that's what deception does to us. It makes this sin become something attractive. What God wants for us is abundance, right? And the test for us that God's always got us in, he's always got us in the test of faithfulness. It's the test of your marriage, right? I'm going to be faithful to my wife, not just in fidelity, but I'm going to be faithful to my wife in everything, in every area of my life. I want to prove my faithfulness. Right. And that's so that I can have a great marriage. It's what I want. It's what God wants for me. And the temptation tries to interrupt that test. Yep. And the temptation tries to get you to throw away the great thing that you have.
That's exactly right.
This is what sin looks like in our life. And that's why when we talk about it this way, it's not like, man, I think the way that people could commonly look at a situation is a guy like, let's talk about a man who's maybe cheated on his wife. And he would say, in reflection, like, I shouldn't have gone to that woman's house.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, that's when I made the wrong decision. No, that's not when you made the wrong decision. You didn't make the wrong decision when you went to her house. You didn't make the wrong decision when you started talking to her. You didn't make the wrong decision when you started looking at other women online. You made the wrong decision way back at the beginning when you let negativity begin to change your desires. It all started with a form of negativity that made you decide to want something else, which made you decide to throw away what you have.
That's so good, G. And that's exactly it. Like you talked about, you're starting to look at other pictures. It's a very common thing among men to be like, well, I'm just looking. It's just eye candy. And I mean, that's a step further than what you already said. You wouldn't be having those wanting to look all the time if you were looking at your wife and going, man, I'm not looking at my wife wishing she had this or wishing she had that.
One of the deceptions of sin is it's not hurting anybody.
Right.
And that's the lie of porn.
Yeah.
Porn says you're not hurting anybody if you look at this, right? And God's definition of love is that you would prefer him over anything else. Mm-hmm. And a man with a woman, you're supposed to feel that way about your spouse.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm supposed to love my wife more than any other woman. Right? But what am I saying if I'm in my time and no one knows about it, but I'm desiring these other women more than my wife? Well, that's not really loving my wife. Now, maybe she doesn't know. Maybe my wife doesn't know I'm looking at that stuff. Am I really loving my wife? No. And that's going to leak out in so many other areas of your life, and it'll also take you down a wrong road.
Right. So let me speak to the men for a second here. If you're in that boat and you're like, you know what, there are things that I feel like are lacking about my wife. Here's how you solve it. Like I really, there's temptation here, there's temptation there. I wish she was like this. Start looking for what your wife does have and really, really appreciate it. It's amazing how when you start showing gratitude for what you do have and focusing your energy there, those things grow and it diminishes your focus on the things that you don't have. And suddenly you start noticing other things like, actually, man, my wife does this. Oh, she looks good. Oh, and it just grows and grows and grows. And you go the opposite way. And I want to finish one other thing, G, because you talked about being faithfulness, being fidelity. If you're sitting there going like, I wish my wife did this, one of the things that I've watched Garrett do, and I've also learned myself in my own marriage, you have to go first. If there's something that you would like your wife to do or you would like to have in your relationship, guess whose responsibility it is to bring it about? It's yours. Like, your wife is a better cook than you now. We've talked about on this podcast before, but when you guys got married, she was not a cook at all. And Lindsay would be, she's fine. We've talked about this. So it's not like we're saying something that she wouldn't be okay with. And she's learned what you taught her. You took it on board to say, I want my wife to be able to cook certain meals because you have high standards on things. So you guys learned to cook together. And then now she's gone on and just become like a wizard in the kitchen.
It's one of the, like when we go out for date nights most of the time.
Yeah.
But because we have young children too. So that's part of it. We want to go have alone time. But sometimes either her parents or my parents will watch the kids. And a great date night for us is we actually really enjoy cooking together.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. I wanted her to be good at cooking because I like good food. Right. But also I showed her how much before I was ever married, when I lived by myself, I was good at cooking.
Right.
Because I like good food. And so she learned to love it that way. But then she also realized, like, man, I also love it because Garrett loves it, and I want to serve him in that way. But that's not where it started.
Right. And you didn't hang it over her head like, hey, you need to do this because this is something that I require. Because now it's now that's a conditional thing.
She saw we did it together, and she's like, well, this is actually fun, and like, how great is it to like make good food?
Yeah.
Who doesn't like good food?
Right.
And my wife is also, she's an influencer and a producer, and she enjoys serving other people.
Right.
And so she's like, man, what a great thing that I can give people tasty food.
Yeah. I mean, her superpower, self-stated, is making people fat. And
yeah. My children are very healthy. My dog is in the category of beyond healthy.
Man. Yeah. Your dog does not have as much restraint as humans. Anyways, but the point is, so we give a very fair, like a fun one. But like, if you're sitting there going, man, I wish my wife was in better shape, guess whose responsibility is to start leading by making exercise together fun and quality time. Not like, hey, hurry up. Why aren't you lifting as much as I am? Why can't you do this? It's like, hey, you know what? Let's start going for walks together.
So we didn't plan to talk about this.
But I think it's important.
This is the opposite side of it, right? Satan tempts you or changes your desire and then eventually tempts you, and all the beginning of it is with negativity.
Yes.
Right? If you want to positively, right, the Greek word for temptation is about it uses the metaphor of a fish hook and bait, and that you bite onto it and take the bait the wrong bait, right? But you could also do the same thing with your spouse, with whoever it is, and instead of talking about the negative, talk about the positive. Like Lindsay was not into running initially, right? And I was doing it. And what I talked about with her, now she loves running.
Yeah,
right?
she does.
And what I initially talked about with her was, I said, like, wouldn't it be great? That was the beginning of the conversation.
Right.
I said, wouldn't it be great? I talked positively about us running together, and we enjoy going out and running together, right? And one of my wife's things one of her love languages is quality time, that we would spend time together. I said, babe, wouldn't it be great if, like, say we're on vacation together in this place or places, and I'm talking about all the places that we like, and we get up in the morning and go out for a run together. And you know what she likes, what I knew she liked? I knew she likes us being together, and I knew she likes those places.
Right.
And I associated running to that. And she's like, you know what? I would enjoy that. I would enjoy us running together. So that's what we started doing, right? So I didn't talk about like, hey, you know what? Why aren't you a runner?
Right.
Why don't you like learn how to run like me? Right? That's the wrong place to start. Don't start with the negativity.
Right.
Don't start with the lack. Start with the positivity. Start with what could be.
Mm-hmm. And guess what? You have to be consistent with that. It can't just start there. It has to keep going with the
That's
positivity.
just the beginning.
Exactly.
I'm not going to go into the whole way to convert a thought process into fruit. That's a different podcast. But I'm saying the same way that negativity will take you down a wrong road, positivity will take you down a right road.
Good.